In the near future, South Africa was no longer the land of wide open skies, vibrant cultures, or abundant natural beauty. Cape Town, once a bustling tourist hub, had become the epicenter of a crisis no one saw coming: water shortages. The dire Day Zero warnings had come true, and the government had implemented strict rationing laws to control the lust of the precious resource. Every day, life was a battle for survival. In the heart of Cape Town, Sibongile Nkosi stared out of the window of her once famous restaurant, Ubuntu Kitchen. Once filled with chatter and the scent of spices, it now sat eerily silent, its tables collecting dust. The chef, renowned for her creative take on South African cuisine, now had no choice but to face the brutal reality. Without water, her restaurant was dying, and so were her dreams. She sighed deeply and wiped a bead of sweat from her brow. Every drop felt precious now, more than she had ever imagined. Just as she was about to close the kitchen, her phone rang. It was Mandisa, her longtime friend and partner, and a scientist specializing in sustainable food. Bongi, Mandisa's voice crackled with urgency. I think I've found a solution. We need to meet. Sibongile and Mandisa met the next morning in the quiet kitchen of Ubuntu Kitchen. The tension between the two was palpable. Both women understood that time was running out for their restaurant. Mandisa, always optimistic, quickly launched into her idea. I've been studying extreme survival methods, Mongi, she said, pulling out a stack of research papers. In some of the harshest conditions, people have survived on what their bodies produce: tears, sweat, even urine. What if we could use that in cooking? What if we could replace water with our own fluids? Sibongile recalled instinctively. Cooking with sweat or urine? No one will eat that. It sounds wrong. Mandisa gave her a stern look. We don't have the luxury of conventional thinking anymore. You've seen the state of the reservoirs, the empty shelves. If we don't innovate, we are finished. You are the best chef I know. If anyone can make it work, it's you. Sibongile looked down at her hands, stained with the memories of the dishes she used to make. The idea was revolting, but Mandisa was right. If they didn't try something drastic, Ubuntu Kitchen wouldn't survive, and neither would they. We'll start small, Mandisa said, sensing her hesitation. A dish that's familiar, umngqusho. We'll use sweat in place of water. It's clean, and the flavor won't be as strong as you think. With a deep breath, Sibongile agreed. They collected Sibongile's sweat carefully, mixing it with dried maize meal and beans to create the traditional dish. As the food simmered, Sibongile added spices, curry powder, turmeric, and coriander to mask any possible taste of salt. Despite her unease, the smell coming from the pot was familiar, comforting even. Finally, the moment of truth came. Sibongile took a small bite, closing her eyes as the flavors unfolded on her tongue. To her surprise, it tasted normal, good even. The sweat didn't overpower the dish. Instead, it blended seamlessly with the ingredients. Mandisa grinned. It works. Sibongile nodded slowly, still processing the reality of what they had just done. But will people eat it when they know what's in it? Mandisa's smile faltered. That's the challenge, but if we present it the right way, maybe they'll see that this isn't just about food. It's about survival. Over the next week, the two women pushed the boundaries further. They experimented with Mandisa's tears in a classy bani chow, a South African street food staple. The salty liquid melded into the spicy curry, creating a depth of flavor that Sibongile hadn't expected. The dish was delicious, rich with the aromas of garlic and ginger, and there was no sign of the tears. Then came the most controversial ingredient, urine. Mandisa, ever the scientists had researched the sterilization process, properly treated, urine could be made completely safe. They decided to use it in bobo tea, a sweet and savory mincemeat dish topped with an egg custard. Sibongile's hands trembled as she poured the liquid into the egg mixture. When it was baked and served, the result was astounding. The bobo tea tasted just as it should, balanced, warm with spices, and nothing like the fluid they had used. Sibongile sat back amazed. They had found a way to make food without water, without sacrificing flavor. But would anyone dare to try it? To test the waters, they organized a secret tasting event. Only a few select food critics, bloggers, and chefs were invited, those known for pushing boundaries in the culinary world. The invitations were cryptic, promising an unforgettable experience in sustainability and the future food innovation. On the night of the event, the guests arrived. Intrigued but unsure of what to expect, the dining room was lit with soft, warm light, creating an intimate atmosphere. As each dish was served, the guests marveled at the flavors, completely unaware of what they were eating. The umngqusho, the banichao, and the bobo tea were met with praise. But when Sibongile stepped forward to explain the source of the special ingredient, the mood shifted. This meal, she began, was created using human fluids, sweat, tears, and urine. In the face of the water crisis, we found a way to cook without using a single drop of water. The room fell silent. Some guests looked horrified, others fascinated. One of the younger critics, Thando Sithole, stood and clapped. "This is brilliant," he declared. "It's the future of food in a world where water is more precious than gold." But not everyone agreed. One woman, pale with disgust, stormed out, muttering about abominations. The news spread quickly. By the next morning, Ubuntu Kitchen was the center of a national controversy. Within days, the news had exploded across South Africa. Social media lit up with debates, and Ubuntu Kitchen was trending for all the wrong reasons. Some hailed Sibongile and Mandisa as pioneers in sustainable cuisine, but others called them out as desecrating traditional South African food. News outlets debated the ethics of using human fluids in cooking, and conservative groups condemned the practice as unnatural. Sibongile's phone rang constantly. The restaurant, which had been on the brink of closing, was suddenly packed with curious patrons and journalists wanting to see the revolutionary dishes for themselves. But their attention came at a price. It wasn't just the public that was conflicted. Sibongile's relationship with her family began to crack under pressure. Her mother, Ma Dlamini, was furious. "Bongi, what have you done?" Her mother's voice trembled with emotion on the voicemail. "People in the community are talking. This isn't how you were raised. You are playing with things that go against our culture, our traditions. You brought shame to the family." Sibongile felt her throat tighten as she listened. Her mother's words echoed the fear she had buried deep inside. She had gone too far, that her pursuit of innovation had alienated the people who meant the most to her. When she finally called her mother back, the conversation was heartbreaking. "Mama, I'm trying to find a way to survive," Sibongile explained, her voice shaking. "There's no water. People are suffering. This is the only way I keep the restaurant going." But her mother was unmoved. "I don't care what crisis you are facing, Bongi. This is not right. You've lost your way." Sibongile's heart sank. The disconnection between her and her family felt like a weight pulling her down. She had grown up with a deep respect for food and tradition, and now she was being told she had betrayed it all. Her father, Baba Nkosi, was slightly more understanding, but he too had his doubts. "Bongi," said during one of their rare conversations, "I see what you're trying to do, but you have to ask yourself, is this really who you are? Are you saving the restaurant, or are you losing yourself in the process?" Sibongile didn't have an answer. She didn't know anymore. As the controversy grew, Sibongile and Mandisa received an invitation to participate in a national cooking competition held in Johannesburg. It was an opportunity to showcase their ideas on a grand stage and defend their concept against South Africa's top chefs. The competition was televised live, and the theme, the future of South African cuisine, couldn't have been more fitting. But Sibongile knew that many would be watching, waiting for her to fail. When they arrived at the competition, the tension in the air was thick. The other chefs eyed them warily, their whispers filled with judgment. As they prepared their dish, sweat-infused umngqusho, Sibongile felt the weight of every critical eye in the room. When the time came to present their dish to the judges, Sibongile stood tall despite the knot in her stomach. "This dish," she said, her voice steady, "was made using human sweat. In the face of water crisis, we've developed a way to cook without wasting a drop of water." The room went silent. The judges, renowned for their culinary expertise, exchanged looks. One of them, Chef Zolam Thembu, a staunch traditionalist, frowned. "South African food is about heritage, about culture," he said slowly. "What you are doing feels like a betrayal of those values." Sibongile's heart raced, but she didn't waver. "Our food has always been about survival, chef. Our ancestors made meals out of what they had. We are doing the same, just in a different context." The judges tasted the dish. To her surprise, one of them, Chef Naledi Khumalo, leaned forward and nodded. "This is bold," she said, "and maybe bold is exactly what we need. The future won't wait for tradition." In the end, after what felt like hours of deliberation, the head judge made the announcement. Ubuntu Kitchen had won. Following the competition, Ubuntu Kitchen transformed into a symbol of South Africa's resilience. Renamed Essence of Life, the restaurant embraced its new identity as a leader in sustainable cuisine. Wealthy patrons and forward-thinking foodies flocked to taste dishes that had once been considered taboo. But despite the success, the personal cost lingered. Sibongile's relationship with her family remained fractured. Her mother still refused to eat at her restaurant, and her father's words continued to haunt her. In a televised interview, Sibongile was asked if she had any regrets. "I wish it didn't have to be this hard," she admitted, her eyes reflecting the weight of the journey. But change is never easy. We are facing a future that demands we adapt, and I'm doing what I can to make sure we survive, even if it means walking a path not everyone can follow. And so, Essence of Life became more than a restaurant. It became a movement. Sibongile had sparked a revolution, one that was reshaping the future of food, not just in South Africa but across the world. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: the future of food had already begun.